Welcome to the week number 4 overview for microeconomic principles here at Rutgers University, Camden. I'm Professor Guy Pascal. And in this week, we are going over one chapter, Chapter 6, which is Household Behavior and Consumer Choice. And here, make sure you understand the fundamentals of household choice. The determinants of household demand is very important. Also, realize that we are going to be using something called a budget constraint. So understand what the definition of a budget constraint is, and in particular how price and income impact the budget constraint. So you should feel comfortable with how a change in the price of a particular commodity is shown in how the budget constraint changes, and also how income impacts the budget constraint. So the budget constraint is a function of the prices of the commodities and your income level. Realize that if you change the price of an item that we are using in the budget constraint, you in essence changing the slope of the budget constraint. Excuse me. Also realize that if income changes, what you're going to see is the shifting of the budget constraint. So it's going to be a parallel shift outward or a parallel shift inward. If income increases, there's a parallel shifting to the right. If income decreases, it's a parallel shifting to the left. Also, make sure you are comfortable with the concept of utility. Utility is what is defined as an imaginary unit of satisfaction. So utility, we're talking about consumer satisfaction. Be sure that you're comfortable with the notion of decreasing marginal utility. It's a notion that as you consume more of an item, you're going to derive less and less utility from successive units of consumption of that particular item. The example I oftentimes use in class is if you imagine yourself lost in the desert and you're parched and you desperately want something to drink, and you happen upon an oasis with clean water, and that first consumption of water is going to be incredibly satisfying, but as you consume more and more water, the satisfaction you get from each successive consumption of water is going to decrease. So it's an important thing to understand for consumer choice analysis. Also, income allocation, the allocation between two different commodities. Also, we go over something called an indifference curve. Make sure you understand what an indifference curve is, why it has the shape and the properties of the indifference curve. And also, the pinnacle of this is using both the budget constraint and the indifference curve to illustrate the concept of utility maximization. So make sure you understand the utility maximizing condition, and also make sure you realize that if that condition doesn't hold, how you can reallocate your consumption between two items in order to improve utility. Also, we are going to be looking at the income and substitution effects. Make sure you understand the definitions of each of those and how they are graphically illustrated.